It's only 4 degrees, it's only 4 degrees. It's only 4 degrees, it's only 4 degrees. It's only 4 degrees, it's only 4 degrees. It's only 4 degrees, it's only 4 degrees.
What do you think it's from? Is it from a ship?
I could see plastic everywhere. Jen, I counted 234 pieces of plastic out of that one bird. Is that a record?
Not even close, unfortunately. So for the species, the record is 276 pieces of plastic inside of one 90-day-old chick. And that plastic, when we weighed it out, accounted for 15% of that bird's body mass. So that's a pretty scary statistic. If we translate that into human terms, it gets even worse. That would be equivalent to you and I having somewhere around 6 or 8 kilos of plastic inside of your stomach. It's equivalent to about 12 pizzas worth of food inside of your stomach.
Only a fraction of the plastic that we produce is recycled.
This is never going to degrade. It's got nowhere to go.
This was something that these animals, they were forced to endure because it was man-made and we'd put it into their environment.
If the plastics are in the food chain for the dolphin, they're also in our food chain.
Exactly.
Communities are built on these landfill sites.
So sweet potatoes, corn, sugar cane, all growing on 40 years of garbage.
Do you have anything not wrapped in plastic?
No.
No.
We have to make our life better for our kids' children. Change is possible. It starts with us.
There's an equivalent of a large garbage truck every minute of every day backing up to the ocean and just dumping plastic into it. We really have to look at ourselves and say, do we deserve this beautiful ocean that was given to us?
And we say yes, but consuming animals is part of the food chain. I mean, it's the circle of life. Everyone who is born must one day die. That's a natural process. That's symbiotic and harmonious to nature and the world that we live in. Now, food chains are incredibly important. They symbolize part of the natural order, and they help maintain and form ecosystems. Fundamentally, they're there to ensure that population sizes of animals are kept consistent and to ensure that the natural ecology is just well balanced. But what we do to animals when we selectively breed them, when we genetically modify them, when we artificially inseminate and forcibly impregnate them, when we take their babies away from them, when we mutilate them, when we exploit them for what they naturally produce for their own species, when we load them into trucks or trailers, take them to a slaughterhouse where we hang them upside down, cut their throat and bleed them to death, has nothing to do with a natural order. And most importantly, it fits none of the criteria required to be labeled as a food chain. You see, the food chain that we cite is a human construct created very conveniently to try and justify what is an entirely unnecessary act. It can take up to 16 kilograms of plants to produce 1 kilogram of animal flesh, which means that vastly more plants are used in the production of a non-vegan diet than a vegan diet. So if we care about plants, logically and morally, we're still obliged to be vegan. And this also ties in nicely with what we were just saying about animals being killed in crop production. Because if more crops are used in a non-vegan diet, that means if we care about small animals being killed in crop production, we are again, logically and morally obliged to still be vegan. But what about soy farming? Because soy farming is devastating for the environment, is it not? Soy farming is terrible for the environment. But that's only because 70 to 85% of all the soy that is grown is fed to livestock animals. In fact, it's predicted that as little as 6% could be used for human consumption. And that's not even about vegans eating tofu, because soya is ubiquitous amongst nearly everyone's diet. It's found in breads, in cereals, sauces, chocolates, and so much more as well.
There's a problem with America's food system. It's not how much food we make, it's how much we end up throwing away. Pound for pound, more food goes into landfills across the country than any other single source of waste. The more food we throw away, the bigger the problem becomes.
You put food in a landfill, it creates methane gas, which is massively more potent than carbon dioxide in terms of climate change and greenhouse gases.
But more people are realizing all that food waste could be a valuable resource. There's more food available in the US than ever before, but we're also throwing more food away. The amount of food Americans waste has been rising for decades, and that has serious environmental and economic consequences. Once you start digging into it, you find out what you throw away and where it goes does make a difference.
You want to know how long the landfill can last, what materials you can get out of it, what materials you can take out of the waste stream that makes the landfill last even longer.
Chappell finds that a lot of what we throw away doesn't have to be. It could be recycled. Nationwide, more than 8 million tons of glass goes in the landfill, 24 million tons of cardboard and paper. Add all the food together from LA to New York, and America throws away nearly 35 million tons each year.
The transportation of people and goods account for nearly a fourth of global carbon dioxide emissions, making it one of the greatest challenges facing cities today. But it also presents a great opportunity for low-carbon urban development. Cities around the world have begun to recognize these opportunities and are busy transitioning from the current fossil fuel dependency to a future built on energy efficiency and renewable energy, a shift that protects the planet while improving people's lives. Sustainable urban mobility requires a mind shift, one where we move from carbon-intensive modes of transport to more sustainable solutions like electric vehicles, car sharing, the expansion of bicycle and pedestrian lanes, as well as an overall shift from road to rail freight.
50% of all the trips that we do within the city are less than 8 kilometers. And this is where the bike becomes very efficient for these shorter trips. And that's why we've increased our public bike system. We're increasing our bike lanes, our culture to have responsible cyclists.
Biggest challenges are how in mobility is how you change behavior. After public policies, how you take people on board with you, how we all collectively accept that the world is changing, the way the city or are organized is changing, and that beyond the obvious action that a city must have, citizens themselves also have to change the way they are looking their city and using that city, and that's the condition to build a more sustainable place to live.
You know, because we spend so much time outside, and I think there was part of the native Hawaiian culture that is true of many native cultures, the sense of needing to care for the environment that you're in, that sometimes we lose when we live in big cities. The interesting thing is, though, my daughters, I find Malia and Sasha, they're 16 and 13 now, they're much more environmentally aware, this generation, than I think some previous generations. They do not dispute, for example, the science around climate change. No. They think it's self-apparent that we've got a problem and that we should be doing something about it.
I absolutely agree. Certainly the letters I get, they bring tears to the eyes from kids of all ages. And the young people, they care. They know that this is the world that they're going to grow up in and they're going to spend the rest of their lives in. Right. But I think it's more idealistic than that. They actually believe that humanity, human species, has no right to destroy and despoil regardless. Right. They actually feel that very powerfully. They do.